What's going on, mi gente? My name is Alex. I'm your Dallas Fort Worth real estate agent. So in this video, I really just want to break down the home buying process step by step, from planning beforehand, before even getting pre-approved, all the way up to closing and receiving the keys to your new home. I absolutely understand that this process can be quite as stressful and a little bit overwhelming, especially if it's your first time getting into the process or if you're planning on buying your first home. And I definitely think that it's a really good idea understanding the process even before speaking to a lender or a real estate agent. That way you can be just a little bit more almost aware of the process, and you'll be able to kind of use this video as a reference, go back to this video. So my hopes in this video is that you at least gain a little bit of knowledge or that it's useful to you. So even if you're not planning on buying a home at this time, which I absolutely understand, if it's a goal of yours for the future. So the first step, I like to call it the pre-approval. And the reason I say that is because I think it's important to have a bit of a plan even before speaking to a lender. Like I said, this is the part of the process in which you want to almost take a step back, look at your finances, kind of make a budget for yourself, start working on your credit score, and really saving up for those closing costs. You can work on your credit score in a lot of different ways. If you haven't really started working on your credit score, it can be pretty important because it's what really comes into play when it comes to the interest rate that you're going to get. Most lenders are going to require a credit score of at least 620. Well, with FHA, I think it's a little bit lower than that as well, or you can get away with a little bit lower. But even then, I suggest bringing that credit score up as much as possible. You may also want to speak to someone that specializes in credit repair, or even like financial advisors. They can really be useful in this part of the process. A few tips of mine are starting to save up. So when it comes to saving up, you can make a budget for yourself, break down your living expenses, what's a necessity and what's kind of something that you can maybe cut back a bit on. For example, if you like to go out a lot, maybe you can reduce the amount of times or the frequency that you go out. You could really make small sacrifices that will add up in the long run. To get a good idea of how much you'd want your mortgage to be, I recommend using the 28% rule, which states that your mortgage should be about 28% of your gross income. So for example, if you make $7,000 a month, you would multiply that by 28% and get about $1,900. So when you're making your budget or creating a budget, you can use that as reference, the 28% rule. Now on to the second step, which is to get pre-approved or speaking to a lender. This is a really important step for a lot of different reasons. One of the reasons is that I wouldn't want you to go out there and look at all these lovely homes on Zillow and having those lovely homes going under contract before you could even submit a proper offer. You also don't really want to get your hopes up looking at properties that you may not be able to afford. Once you talk to a lender, they will give you a good idea of how much house you can afford. Now, when you do get pre-approved, you will have about 45-day window to get pre-approved with as many different lenders. Just like you'd shop around for insurance quotes, you can also do that. That way you can get a good idea and compare a little bit, and it won't be such a hard pull if you do it within this 45-day window. After getting pre-approved, that is when it is time to speak to a real estate agent. Your lender may go ahead and recommend a real estate agent. However, I do recommend interviewing at least 2 different agents. And the reason I recommend this is because you really want to work with someone who is, first of all, knowledgeable, knows the market, knows the data. And at the end of the day, you also want to work with someone that you just feel comfortable with, someone that maybe you can get along with, because you will be spending quite some time texting, over the phone, looking at different properties, and just spending a lot of time with this person. Of course, you still want this person to be, like I said, knowledgeable. A good real estate agent is going to be able to help you throughout the whole process. They should make the whole process a lot smoother, a lot less stressful. Now, after finding a great real estate agent, hopefully they'll have a great consultation with you in which they're gonna go ahead and break down the criteria, your needs, your wants. I do recommend having a list of this already. Your needs would be something that you absolutely need in your home. For example, number of bedrooms, location, anything that would just be a deal breaker. Now, your wants would maybe be something like type of countertops that you have, the color of a certain bedroom, maybe even a swimming pool if it's not necessary. But of course, your real estate agent will help you get a good idea of what's out there depending on your budget. Once you get that criteria down, they're going to start sending you homes. That's when you'll start the home searching process. During this process, it's really important to pay attention to all the details, right? Once you're actually looking at different homes, I think that it's really, really important to pay attention to all the details. I think it's okay to be a little bit picky with some of the homes. If you just walk into a home, right into a home, and you just don't like it at all, that is absolutely fine. But of course, realistically so, keep in mind your budget. If this is your first home, it's okay to find a home that isn't necessarily what you imagine when you were thinking about your dream home. Keep in mind, you can build some equity in this home and down the line upgrade for a newer home. Now, you do want to pay attention to some subtle details. For example, any weird smells that may come from the home, that is definitely something you want to pay attention to. Any really serious cracks in the walls is also a telltale sign. If you can see some of the roof and almost have like a good eye for that, you can kind of tell if it's a really old roof or not. Pay attention to the inside of cabinets or termites or whatnot. This is all really, really important. That way, if you do go under contract on a certain property that has noticeable issues, you can know what to inspect and what to really pay attention to when running inspection reports. Now, once you do make an offer, your agent is going to be able to look at different properties that have sold in that specific area, and so that way they'll be able to tell you what is a fair offer, what kind of offer you can submit. You don't want to lowball too much, just because that can risk offending a seller and having them completely reject your offer and not even try to negotiate. But at the end of the day, of course, you still want to avoid spending as much money as possible, right? So a good agent will give you a good idea of how much to submit, and you can kind of go off on that. And once you do go under contract, this is where it can be a little bit overwhelming, or you really have to pay attention to specific dates. Now, before submitting an offer, you want to pay attention to the details, to the fine print. Make sure that you go through the contract, that it makes sense with what you've talked about with your agent. You have a lot of different dates being thrown at you in different numbers. Some of the things to keep in mind are the option period. An option period will be anywhere between 5 to 15 days. And this is when you really want to do your due diligence on more specific stuff, such as any inspections that you may want to run. When that inspection report comes back, it's going to have all kinds of things. I mean, just think about it like this. If I were to go to a doctor, even if I felt 100% fine, they would still uncover all kinds of things that they did, like a really extensive, all kinds of different tests on me. It's kind of like that. When you run an inspection, it's going to be super detailed with all kinds of information on it. But the most important ones that I really want you to pay attention to will be things such as electrical, plumbing, anything wrong with the HVAC, anything wrong with the roof, and the foundation. Those will be the most important things. Other smaller things, I think it's still important to pay close attention to them. But like I said, the most important ones are the other 5 that I listed. During this 5-day option period, you'll be able to back out for whatever reason. So, if there's something on the inspection report that you just can't negotiate with the sellers on, you could back out. You could also honestly just back out for whatever reason. Say one day you just wake up right before the inspection period ends, you just decide that it's just not the home for you, you can back out. The only thing that they would really keep is how much you paid for the option fee, but you'd still be getting your earnest money back. Now, the earnest money is almost like a deposit that you put it forward to show that you were serious about purchasing this home. It'll be anywhere typically around 1% of the purchase price, and it'll be added to all of your closing costs at the end of the purchase at closing, as well as the option fee, unless of course you were to back out, right? And I forgot to explain a little bit about the negotiations once that inspection report comes back. You'll have really 3 options. You can either ask the sellers to make any kind of repairs on the home. You can also ask them to maybe give you credit at closing. Most of the time, I do recommend asking for a little bit of credit if you want to get anything really serious repaired, just because that way you'll have a little bit of a say and you'll be able to choose your own contractors. Of course, if you don't want to deal with that, you can ask for them to get a repair. Now, after you get through the option period, your lender is also going to send out an appraiser to go ahead and appraise the home, right? So the reason why appraisals are done is so that your lender ensures that the loan amount does not exceed the actual value of the property. If the appraisal comes in higher than what you're under contract for, then that's great. You already have a little bit of equity in your property. But if the appraisal comes in lower, then you'll either have to bring in a little bit more cash at closing, or you can bring down the purchase price a little bit or meet somewhere in the middle. Or if you have a contingency put in place, you can back out. And last but not least is your closing. So right before closing, you will have a day to do your final walkthrough, which is when you'll go through the property and you really want to make sure that the home looks exactly as the first time that you viewed the property. About 3 days before you get to the closing table, you're going to get a closing statement, which will have pretty much all the numbers, all the cash that you're going to have to bring to closing. Just make sure that it looks like what is on the contract, and you really want to make sure that you bring that money to the closing table as well, or you could also wire it. And finally, when you're at the closing table, you're going to be signing a ton of documents. You'll have someone there explaining them to you. That way it won't be really too confusing. And finally, after signing all of these documents, you'll receive the keys to your new home. That is pretty much the basic steps to the home buying process. I try to be as detailed as possible without throwing in too much numbers, too much information at you. As you can see, there are a ton of different steps that you have to take even before going to actually look at homes. And like I said, it can be stressful. It's really important that you find a good lender, find a good real estate agent, and really do your due diligence. So having a good understanding of the process can really, really help out. As always, if there's anything I can help you out with, feel free to reach out to me. I've already had some of y'all reach out through my Facebook, Instagram, even my number. I'm more than happy to help and here to help out. So do not hesitate to reach out. So that is all for this video. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time.